After that conversation on the couch, the one where my daughter suggested downsizing like she was offering me a new cardigan, I became exactly who they needed me to be. Agreeable. I nodded slowly. I smiled. I said things like, I suppose you're right, and I don't need all that space anymore. I even let my eyes mist over a little, because grief makes people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people rush. Inside, though, my thoughts were sharp as broken glass. That afternoon, my sister Linda came over again. She always smelled like expensive perfume and impatience. She walked through the house like she already owned it, fingers brushing over surfaces, eyes cataloging. "You still have that old jewelry box?" she asked casually, leaning against the kitchen counter. I stirred my tea with exaggerated care. "Somewhere?" I said. "Why?" "Oh, no reason," she replied too quickly. "Just memories." Memories, right. She smiled, but her eyes flicked toward the hallway, toward the guest room, toward my purse hanging on the chair. I excused myself to rest. I didn't go to bed. I sat on the edge of the mattress and listened. They didn't wait long. "I think she's finally ready," Linda said. "Did you hear her? She's letting go." My daughter exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and guilt. "It's for the best. She can't manage all of it anymore. And if she forgets a few items here and there," my son-in-law added, "well, she won't even know what's missing." There it was again, that assumption, that dismissal. I pressed my palm flat against my thigh to keep it from shaking. They talked about the china first. Who might want it? Then the silver. Then the furniture. My furniture. Each item reduced to dollars and convenience. Not once did they say my name. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there replaying moments from my life like evidence in a trial only I knew was happening. My husband sanding that table until his hands cramped. My daughter doing homework at that same table, pencil tapping, ponytail swinging. Christmas dinners. Arguments. Laughter. Silence. I wasn't ready to disappear into boxes and estate sales. The next morning, I asked my daughter to drive me to the bank. She hesitated. "I can do it for you." I smiled sweetly. "I'd like to go myself." She watched me like she was gauging how much energy I had left. Then she agreed. At the bank, I sat across from a young woman with kind eyes and a neat bun. I moved slowly on purpose. I asked for copies. I asked about accounts my daughter assumed she already knew everything about. I made changes, small ones at first, then bigger. I also stopped answering certain questions at home. When Linda asked where I'd put the jewelry box, I shrugged. I forget. When my son-in-law asked if I'd signed the preliminary paperwork for the realtor, I said I wasn't sure where I'd put it. They exchanged looks when they thought I wasn't watching. "She's slipping," Linda whispered once, not quietly enough. I let my shoulders slump. I let my voice tremble. But my mind, clear as it had ever been. One afternoon, while they were out, I went into the garage and opened the storage cabinet they thought was full of junk. At the back, behind old paint cans, was a folder. Inside it were documents they didn't know existed. Deeds, letters, receipts, proof. I sat on the concrete floor and laughed, not loudly, just a breathy, disbelieving sound. They thought this was going to be easy. They thought I was already gone. And that was their mistake. Because when people start planning your end without you, they forget something important. You still get a say. There's a moment right before betrayal turns into action, when the air changes. You can feel it. Conversations get shorter. Smiles get tighter. Doors close just a little too softly. That's where I was living by then, in that thin electric space where I knew something was coming, and they thought I was too slow to notice. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because it was raining, the kind of steady gray rain that makes the whole world feel smaller. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug I hadn't actually been drinking from, watching the water streak down the window. My daughter was on the phone in the other room, her voice low. My son-in-law's car wasn't in the driveway. Linda's was. I heard the garage door. Footsteps, not rushed. Confident. A box scraped against concrete. I didn't move right away. I let my heart pound. I let my thoughts line up. Then I stood. My knees complained, real pain this time, but I welcomed it. It grounded me. I walked down the hallway, past family photos they'd already started to see as decor instead of history, and into the garage. Linda was there, crouched beside a cardboard box. My cardboard box. The one I'd packed myself years ago, the one marked in my handwriting, personal. She startled when she saw me, actually startled, like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. "Oh," she said too loudly, "Margaret, you shouldn't be down here. It's cold." I looked at the box. It was open. Inside I could see the edge of the velvet jewelry case, the corner of an old photo album, a glint of gold. "What are you doing?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. That surprised both of us. Linda straightened slowly, brushing dust from her knees. "We were just organizing, helping you. You know how clutter can be overwhelming." "We," I repeated. She smiled. Thin. "Your daughter agreed." That was the moment, the exact moment something inside me settled, not hardened, clarified, like fog lifting. "I didn't," I said, and reached into the box. Linda's hand shot out, hovering, not quite touching mine. "Margaret, really, you don't need all that. Half of it just sits." I lifted the jewelry case and opened it. Inside was my engagement ring, the one I'd taken off only to wash dishes, the one I'd worn through 42 years of marriage. Next to it, the necklace my husband gave me after our first real fight, the earrings my mother wore to my wedding. Linda's eyes followed the pieces like they were magnets. "Put it back," she said, and immediately tried to soften it. "I mean, let's be sensible." "Sensible," I echoed, closing the case. I looked at her then, really looked, the impatience, the calculation, the total absence of shame. "You were going to sell this," I said. She didn't deny it. She shrugged. "It would help with expenses, and honestly, you don't even remember half of it." That stung more than I expected, not because it was true. It wasn't, but because she wanted it to be. I turned and walked back into the house, carrying the case. My daughter was in the living room now, phone in hand, face pale. "Mom," she started, "this isn't what it looks like." I set the case on the coffee table and opened it. The silence was loud. "You were going to take my things," I said, "while I slept." Her mouth opened, closed. "We thought." "You thought I was already gone," I said. "You thought I wouldn't notice." Tears sprang to her eyes. Real ones, maybe, or just fear. "I was trying to help," she said. "You can't handle everything anymore." That old, familiar anger rose up, the one women like me are taught to swallow. I didn't swallow it this time. "I handled a marriage, a house, a career, and raising you," I said quietly. "I can handle my own belongings." My son-in-law came in then, rain on his jacket, confusion on his face. Linda hovered behind him, suddenly small. "What's going on?" he asked. I smiled. Not kindly. "I know," I said. "All of it. The whispering, the plans, the photos, the paperwork you wanted me to sign." Their faces changed, one by one. Shock, panic, calculation. "I wasn't asleep," I added. "Not that night, or any night." No one spoke. I picked up the jewelry case and held it to my chest. "I've already spoken to my lawyer," I said. "I've made arrangements." My daughter stared at me. "Arrangements for what?" "For protecting myself," I said, "from people who think love comes with a price tag." I went back to the guest room and closed the door, this time firmly. Behind it, I could hear murmured voices, arguments, blame being passed around like a hot pan. I sat on the bed and let my hands shake now that I was alone. I wasn't done, not even close. I didn't leave that night. I think part of them expected me to pack a bag in tears, call a friend, retreat quietly like an embarrassed guest who'd overstayed her welcome. That would have made it easier for them, cleaner, less uncomfortable. But I stayed. I stayed in that guest room with the floral curtains and the faint smell of lemon cleaner, listening to the house creak and breathe around me. I stayed while my daughter cried in the kitchen, while my sister hissed accusations, while my son-in-law paced the living room like a man trying to calculate losses. I stayed because I wanted them to sit in it. The next morning, I woke early, earlier than all of them. The rain had stopped, leaving the air sharp and clean, like the world after an argument. I showered, dressed carefully, put on lipstick I hadn't worn in months, a deep red, not for vanity, for armor. When I walked into the kitchen, my daughter was already there, eyes swollen, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. "Good morning," I said. She flinched, just a little. "Mom, we should talk." "Yes," I said, pouring myself coffee. "We should." We sat. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Ordinary sounds in a suddenly unfamiliar space. "I never meant to hurt you," she said finally. I was scared. You're getting older. What if something happens? Someone has to be prepared." "Prepared?" That word again. "I prepared for plenty," I said. "I prepared meals. I prepared you for school. I prepared for sickness and loss and widowhood. What I didn't prepare for was being treated like a problem to solve." Her eyes filled again. Linda put ideas in my head. I nodded. She always does. As if summoned, Linda appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, chin lifted, defensive, cornered. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. "Nobody was stealing." I turned my head slowly and looked at her. "You opened a box marked personnel," I said. "You discussed selling my belongings while assuming I was asleep. That's not help. That's theft with better manners." She scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I smiled then, a small, tired smile. "No," I said. "I'm being thorough." Later that morning, my lawyer arrived. I hadn't told them he was coming. He was a neat man in his 50s, calm voice, steady eyes. He shook my hand warmly, addressed me directly, never once speaking around me. That alone felt like a small victory. We sat at the dining table, my dining table, the one they'd already priced in their heads. "I'll be brief," he said, laying out documents. "Margaret has made several updates to her estate plan, effective immediately." The color drained from my daughter's face. Linda leaned forward. "This is unnecessary." He didn't look at her. "The house is now held in a trust," he continued. "Assets previously assumed to be part of a future estate have been reassigned. Access to accounts has been restricted." My son-in-law swallowed, hard, and the lawyer added, glancing at me for confirmation, "Margaret has decided to move back into her home, full-time, with in-home assistance of her choosing." The room was silent. "You're leaving?" my daughter whispered. "I'm reclaiming," I said. Linda stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're punishing us." I met her gaze. "No, I'm protecting myself." The lawyer packed up his folder. "If there are any further attempts to remove property without Margaret's consent," he said calmly, "there will be legal consequences." He left shortly after. No one followed him out. The rest of the day passed in fragments, tense silences, half-finished sentences, my daughter oscillating between anger and guilt, Linda avoiding my eyes entirely. By evening, my bags were packed. My daughter stood by the door as I put on my coat. She looked smaller somehow, younger, like the girl who once needed me to fix everything. "I don't want to lose you," she said. "You didn't lose me," I replied. "You just forgot who I was." She nodded, tears slipping free. "I'm sorry." "I know," I said, and I meant it, but forgiveness doesn't mean surrender. When I stepped back into my own house, the silence wrapped around me like a long-missed shawl. The furniture stood exactly where I'd left it. The air smelled like dust and old books and me. I walked from room to room, touching things, the table, the cabinet, the walls that had held my life without trying to sell it off piece by piece. That night, I slept deeply, no pretending, no listening for whispers. In the weeks that followed, word traveled fast. Linda stopped calling. My daughter called often. Carefully, we're rebuilding something now. Slower, with clearer boundaries. As for me, I hired help. I updated everything. I learned painfully, but finally, that being old does not mean being invisible, and being kind does not mean being disposable. They whispered about selling my things while I slept. I wasn't asleep, and now they know it. I thought the hardest part would be taking my house back. I was wrong. The hardest part was living in it afterward, knowing what almost happened there, knowing how close I'd come to being edited out of my own life by the people who claimed they loved me most. The first few weeks were strange, quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful yet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice every tick of the clock, every groan of the floorboards, like the house itself was checking to see if I was really back. I was, but I was changed. I hired a woman named Evelyn to help a few days a week. She was in her early 40s, brisk, respectful, never spoke over me or finished my sentences. The first day she arrived, she asked, "How do you like things done, Margaret?" and waited. Just that alone almost made me cry. Word filtered back to me through neighbors, church friends, even distant relatives who suddenly remembered my phone number. Linda was telling people I'd turned cold. My daughter was telling people I was confused but stubborn. My son-in-law was telling people nothing at all. I let them talk. One afternoon, about 2 months later, my daughter came over unannounced. I saw her car pull into the driveway and felt that familiar tightening in my chest. Old habits die hard. She looked different, tired, less polished, like life had pushed back a little. We sat at the kitchen table again. Same one, different balance. "I didn't realize how much you still managed on your own," she said quietly, watching me fold a dish towel. I think I told myself a story, that you needed me more than you did." I didn't answer right away. "Did you ever stop to think," I asked finally, "that you needed me to be weaker?" Her eyes flicked up, startled. "Because if I was fragile," I continued, "then you didn't have to feel guilty for taking control, or for listening when someone else told you I was already slipping." She swallowed. "Linda." "Yes," I said simply. She nodded. "I've stopped talking to her." That surprised me. I didn't show it. "I'm not asking for punishment," she said quickly. I want to do better." I looked at her, really looked, and saw not a villain, not a monster, but a woman afraid of the future and ashamed of how she tried to manage that fear. "We can build something new," I said, "but not on the assumption that I'm disappearing." She reached for my hand. This time I let her. Linda tried once more. She showed up one Saturday afternoon, uninvited, sunglasses on like armor. She didn't get past the porch. "You've poisoned everyone against me," she said, voice sharp. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "No, Linda, I just stopped protecting you." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me at all. "You think you won," she said. "I didn't win," I replied. "I woke up." She left angry. She hasn't been back. Here's the part no one tells you about standing up for yourself late in life. It's terrifying, but it's also intoxicating. There's a freedom in realizing the worst thing already happened. They underestimated you, and you survived it. I started doing things just because I could. I rearranged furniture. I traveled alone. I sold a few things I chose to sell, and kept the ones that mattered. I wrote letters. I made plans. I even rewrote my will again, not out of spite, but clarity. Love without respect isn't love. It's convenience. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that ceiling fan clicking in the guest room, about how still I lay, about how close I came to believing their version of me. And then I smile, because I know something now I didn't know then. I'm not fragile. I'm not fading. I'm not furniture. I'm a woman who listened quietly while people plotted her ending and then decided to write a better one.